they get to this point where they're starting to notice that the guys that they could have got locked down at 23, they're now trying to lock down at 31, and that same guy's not interested in the girl. She's still attractive at 31. It's just he's looking at her 23-year-old sister and being like, yeah, I'd rather be with her.
In terms of the dating scene and relationships in the US and how that psychology plays into that. You mentioned dating apps. As a guy kind of banned from a couple apps, not striking out a lot on apps and so forth, is it essentially a rigged game? Is it like a stacked deck that most men will lose?
It's not, it may negligently be rigged, but it's not nefariously rigged, meaning I don't think it's deliberately rigged. I just think it's a function of evolution. Whereas we've given both genders this perceived dilemma of choice. Women, a dilemma of choice because of social media, because of dating apps, and because of things like fans, and men, a dilemma of choice when they watch pornography or sedate themselves in other ways like that by messaging women they have no chance with on social media apps. And also from seeing images of women that have been doctored using FaceApp, Facetune, Lightroom, Photoshop, and then believing that women look like that in real life, which often they don't. I got news for you. I live out here in Vegas and LA. I see these girls in person. They're pretty, but they don't look like the photos. And so men and women often end up with these delusional beliefs, and they have a perceived choice, a perceived delusion of choice that isn't real. And what I mean by that is women will often left swipe on a man and in her mind think that because at one point she had sex with a super attractive man or a professional athlete or a rapper or a movie star, she thinks that now that man that she just left swiped on, not only is he beneath what she's capable of getting, but she could easily, if she wanted to, get that man to commit to her. And that's obviously not true. The issue with women where their issues are is they are absolutely correct in who they could have sex with. They're usually know to a pretty good extent who they could have sex with. And they are delusional, for lack of a better term. And I use the word delusional because here's reality. Okay, here's base reality. And here is what you believe about reality, and there's a delta in between them. There's a difference in between those two things. That difference is delusion. Okay, I know a lot of people don't like when I say use the word delusion because they find it to be chauvinistic, but I say men are delusional also. Yeah. Women are, when it comes to short-term dating, women are absolutely accurate. They believe they could fuck certain guys and they can those guys. When it comes to long-term dating, they are absolutely delusional. And as they get older, the men that they can actually get to settle down into long-term relationships lessens, but they don't recognize that it lessens because, once they burn 28, 29, 30, they actually feel more empowered, and they get to this point where they're starting to notice that the guys that they could have got locked down at 23, they're now trying to lock down at 31, and that same guy's not interested in the girl. She's still attractive at 31. It's just he's looking at her 23-year-old sister and being like, yeah, I'd rather be with her. There's less baggage, fewer bodies that I have to deal with. And so because of that, what's happened is because of this dilemma of choice, women will, I read one statistic, I believe it's 16,000 swipes for 10 dates for women. Women are not going on dating apps to date. They're going on dating apps for attention. Men are going dating apps for sex. There's about 6 guys for every girl on dating apps. And when you look at the probabilities here, what you're going to find is, 80% of the men on these dating apps are deemed unattractive by women. 20% are deemed attractive, and 4.5% are deemed so attractive that women will actually pursue them. If you're in that top 4.5%, the game is actually rigged in your favor. If you're part of the top 20%, the game is like, you might have to put in a little bit of work. If you're in that top 20%, you probably should buy those boosts on Tinder and Bumble and Hinge, to boost your account. If you're in the bottom 80%, it doesn't make any difference how many boosts you buy. You're just going to get like more matches, but you're going to get more matches from girls trying to get you to go down their fans funnel or, straight up sugar babies or prostitutes.
That's
And
what
so
it is.
yeah,
It's a lot
yeah, a
of the
lot of guys.
funneling for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, going back to what I said, male delusion comes from right swiping on attractive women on dating apps and getting a match when those girls are really just trying to get you to follow them on Instagram or trying to get you to go down their own funnel. Delusion comes from women when they start believing that all these men that they're left swiping on, they could actually be in a relationship with like any of them. Most of them they can't be. Now, the very attractive women definitely can. I'm not saying that's not the case. What I'm saying is women can always find someone to commit to them long term. It's just, will those women be attracted to those same men? The answer is usually no. Because most women don't find most men attractive. Most women don't like most men most of the time.
For men who have been struggling dating, and I don't know what the percentage is, maybe Michael, you have some data on that, but in terms of number of men that regularly visit porn sites, OF, and check out those. What do you think?
I mean, it's going to be a really high number. So there's two different forces here. One is the force of sedation, which is the video games, pornography and like I'll be the first to admit I had a problem with video games and pornography while I was in the military and I was deployed for a long time, or and not even deployed. When I was in places like Warner Robins, Georgia, or Wichita, Kansas, there just wasn't enough for me to do socially. So I had a problem with it, and it's just something that I worked through. I'll tell you the best solution to a problem with pornography is to have a really hot young girlfriend who wants sex 3 times a day. All of a sudden, pornography problem just vanishes. It's gone.
You got the real thing now.
Yeah. It just woof, all of a sudden no pornography issue anymore.
Yeah.
So it's one of these situations where when you get into that place, you're addicted to pornography, or you're using the sedation of video games. Using the sedation is a big one, of alcohol, big one in the military is definitely a big one. Are you using the sedation of, like, say, Oxycontin or maybe Adderall or something like that to take away? I have a bad feeling about a thing, therefore I need to smoke marijuana. Smoking marijuana, I don't think, is anywhere near as bad as some of those other things. But if you only smoke marijuana to get rid of your anxiety, then your body's natural ability to get rid of anxiety lessens. So, what was the original question?
So in terms of just part of
the
it,
amount of men on the amount of men that are on these apps. Okay, so one of the forces is the sedation, and the other force is the lack of improvement. So in order for you to get out of this place where you can have a beautiful girlfriend who wants to be with you, as men, we always have to perform. If there's anything that your audience should take from this, men, we always have the burden of performance. Women often have a burden of performance. Like, for instance, if a woman is a female fighter pilot, or she's the mayor of a city, or she's a cardiologist, those women definitely have a burden of performance. But there are some women that don't have a burden of performance. They have a situation where their performance is, to stay at home with the kids, or they have a sugar daddy or something to that effect, or they make money on OnlyFans. Their burden of performance is nowhere near that of a man, whereas all men have a burden of performance. Unless you are, born with a silver spoon in your mouth, or incredibly good looking. And even then, being incredibly good looking doesn't help a man to the extent that it helps a woman. If you had a son and a daughter, and you had one that was tall and one that was good looking, it's always better for the man to be taller and the woman to be good looking, versus the other way around, where the woman is tall and the man is good looking. And you just get less for it,
Yeah.
So, like, the earning power for Shaquille O'Neal's daughter, who's tall, versus his son, who's tall, is about 100x. Basically, one of the forces is the sedation, and the other force is the lack of discipline and the lack of delayed gratification necessary to improve yourself. Because on one hand, it's like, I have this incredible, like, anything I can think of, anything I can imagine is just there for me, right? But on the other hand, what I need to do to improve myself, it's got to be the gym. I personally think 5 days a week. I know some people say 3. I think 5, 6, 7 days a week is fine, especially in the beginning. I think you have to change your diet. I prefer a paleo diet. If you have a weight problem, you may need to, it's going to be a combination of cardio, possibly intermittent fasting, which sucks. Maybe you do something like 75 hard. I highly recommend for people to become more attractive, better networkers, and to become more charismatic, that they read a ton, get through 20 books a year, use Audible if you need to do that.
And you're saying that because you can now strike up more interesting conversations,
yes,
and be well-rounded.
But it's also going to change the way you think about things. You're going to be able to, like, model people's way of thinking, and be more empathetic to other people, which also is going to make you a better conversationalist.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great point.
So working on charisma. So that's just back and forth with people for a long time, working on your networking skills. And then all of those things together are going to make you much better at dating.